There is a moment in every life when you realize you have said too much. Not in the heat of anger, not in the rush of excitement, but in the quiet aftermath when you feel something intangible slip away. You shared your plans, your dreams, your struggles, your strategies. You were open, honest, vulnerable. And somehow, in that openness, you became smaller, less formidable, less respected. The people you confided in did not draw closer. They drew back, armed now with knowledge they did not have before. Knowledge about your weaknesses, your fears, your next moves. This is the secret Machiavelli understood with brutal clarity. Revelation is subtraction. Every truth you speak about yourself is a piece of armor you remove. Every vulnerability you expose is a weapon you hand to someone else. We are living in the age of radical transparency. We are told that authenticity is the highest virtue, that sharing our struggles makes us relatable, that vulnerability is courage. Social media has become a confessional booth where millions perform their inner lives for strangers, documenting every thought, every feeling, every moment of doubt or triumph. We have been convinced that the more we reveal, the more connected we become. But connection and respect are not the same thing. You can be known and still be powerless. You can be authentic and still be exploited. You can be vulnerable and still be alone. The question that hangs in the air, heavy and uncomfortable, is this: what if the very thing we have been taught to celebrate, our willingness to share everything, is the exact thing that keeps us weak? What if power is not found in revelation but in reservation? What if the people who command respect, who shape outcomes, who move through the world with quiet authority, do so precisely because they understand that mystery is currency and silence is strength? What happens to the person who reveals nothing, who guards their thoughts like treasures, who lets others wonder instead of explaining? Walk through any office, any social gathering, any online space. Notice who commands attention without demanding it. Notice who people listen to when they finally speak. It is never the person who shares every thought, every plan, every feeling. It is the person who speaks sparingly, who reveals strategically, who makes you work to understand them. There is something magnetic about restraint in a world drowning in oversharing. Something powerful about the person who does not feel compelled to fill every silence with confession. This is not about dishonesty. This is not about becoming cold or closed off. This is about understanding a fundamental truth that Machiavelli observed in the courts of Renaissance Italy and that remains just as true today. Information is power, and the moment you give it away freely, you relinquish control. Not because people are inherently malicious, though some certainly are, but because human nature is predictable. We use what we know. We exploit what we understand. We take advantage of what is freely offered. This is not cruelty. This is simply how the world works. Think about the last time you shared something important with someone. A goal you were working toward. A problem you were facing. A strategy you were developing. What happened next? In the best cases, nothing. They listened, nodded, forgot. In the worst cases, they used that information against you. They warned you of the risks, undermining your confidence. They shared your plans with others, diluting your advantage. They offered advice you did not ask for, projecting their limitations onto your vision. Or perhaps most insidiously, they simply knew. And in knowing, they gained leverage. A subtle shift in the power dynamic that you cannot quite name but definitely feel. Machiavelli wrote that rulers must learn to be like the fox and the lion. The lion represents strength, obvious and impressive, but the fox represents cunning, the ability to see traps before walking into them. Most people spend their lives trying to be lions, displaying their strength, announcing their capabilities, proving their worth through constant demonstration. But they forget the fox. They forget that survival, that power, That influence often depends not on what you show but on what you conceal. The fox knows when to reveal and when to retreat. The fox understands that the hunter who shows all his traps catches nothing. We have built a culture that celebrates the lion and forgets the fox entirely. We reward disclosure, confession, the performance of authenticity. We have convinced ourselves that hiding anything is the same as lying, that privacy is the same as secrecy, that reservation is the same as dishonesty. But this is a trap, one that keeps most people perpetually vulnerable, perpetually giving away their power in the name of being real, being authentic, being open. And meanwhile, those who understand Machiavelli's secret move quietly through the world, revealing nothing, gaining everything. This is where our journey begins. Not in the palaces of medieval Italy, but in your own life, in the moments when you shared too much and felt the shift. When you explained your reasoning and watched people use it against you. When you revealed your plans and found them sabotaged, not through malice necessarily, but through the simple reality that people cannot help but influence what they know about. When you were vulnerable and discovered that not everyone deserves your vulnerability. When you were open and learned that openness without discernment is not courage. It is self-betrayal. Machiavelli's secret is not that you should lie. It is that you should be selective, strategic, intentional about what you reveal and to whom. That you should guard your inner world, your plans, your vulnerabilities, your next moves like the precious resources they are. Because they are. Every piece of information you share is a seed planted in someone else's mind. You cannot control how it grows. You cannot predict how it will be used. But you can control whether you plant it at all. This is the beginning of power. Not in what you say, but in what you choose not to say. Not in what you reveal, but in what you protect. Not in being known, but in being unknowable. The modern world will tell you this is wrong. That you should share everything, explain everything, reveal everything. That this is what authentic people do. But ask yourself, who benefits from your revelations? Who gains when you share your strategies, your struggles, your plans? Is it you, or is it everyone around you, now armed with knowledge they can use, share, or leverage? The answer to this question changes everything. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once you understand that revelation is subtraction, that every truth you speak about yourself makes you smaller, more predictable, more vulnerable, you cannot go back to the careless openness you once thought was strength. Let us descend deeper into the psychology of this. Why do we feel compelled to reveal ourselves? Why does silence feel like a burden we must break? Why do we confess our plans, our fears, our strategies to people who have not earned our trust? The answer lies in the shadow, in the parts of ourselves we have never fully examined. For most of us, the compulsion to reveal comes from a wound so old we do not remember receiving it. The belief that we must prove ourselves, that we must make others understand us, that we must justify our existence through constant explanation. Carl Jung taught us that we develop personas, masks we show the world to protect our vulnerable core. But what happens when the mask becomes a performance of vulnerability itself? When we learn that revealing our struggles, our pain, our fears is how we earn love, attention, sympathy, we create a different kind of mask, one that looks like authenticity but is actually a strategy for connection. We share not because we want to, but because we have learned that sharing is how we matter. That revealing is how we bond. That confession is how we belong. This is the trap. Because real vulnerability is selective. Real openness is earned. Real intimacy happens in private, not performed for an audience. But we have been trained to broadcast our inner lives, to share our thoughts with hundreds or thousands of people who do not know us and do not care about us beyond the entertainment value of our struggles. We post our problems, live stream our breakdowns, document our healing journeys. And we call this courage. But courage is not the same as exhibitionism. Bravery is not the same as carelessness. There is nothing noble about revealing yourself to people who have not proven they will honor what you share. Every time you confess your plans to someone who has not shown genuine investment in your success, the shadow is speaking. The part of you that still believes you need permission to pursue your dreams. That still seeks validation from people who have no authority over your life. That still thinks external approval is more important than internal certainty. This is not openness. This is a plea for reassurance disguised as sharing. And the world will respond accordingly, not with respect, but with advice you did not ask for, warnings you do not need, and projections of limitation that have nothing to do with you and everything to do with the person speaking. Think about how it feels after you reveal something important. In the moment, there might be relief. The burden of carrying it alone is temporarily lightened. But what comes after? Often, a vague sense of exposure. A creeping discomfort. The realization that you cannot take back what you have shared. That the other person now holds a piece of you, a piece of information, a piece of power. They can use it, share it, judge it, weaponize it. You are no longer in control of your own narrative. You have outsourced your inner world to someone else's interpretation. This is the emotional cost that no one talks about. The regret that comes from oversharing. Not the loud, obvious regret of sharing something scandalous or private. But the quiet erosion of your own sovereignty that happens when you give away too much of yourself, too often, to too many people who do not value what you offer. You become a known quantity, predictable, transparent, and in a world where mystery commands attention and scarcity creates value, transparency makes you forgettable. People stop wondering about you because you have told them everything. They stop respecting your boundaries because you have shown them you have none. They stop valuing your presence because you have made yourself completely knowable. The resentment builds slowly. You begin to notice that people do not reciprocate your openness. That the vulnerability you offer is not returned. That you are doing all the revealing while others remain guarded, protected, powerful. You start to feel used, even if no one has technically done anything wrong. Because the imbalance is real. You have given pieces of yourself away while others have kept themselves whole. You have weakened your position while they have strengthened theirs. Not through malice, but through simple mathematics. Information flows one way, power follows. But here is what makes this pattern so difficult to break. We have been taught that the problem is other people. That if they would just be more open, more vulnerable, more authentic, the exchange would be fair. But this is not true. The problem is not that others do not reveal enough. The problem is that you reveal too much. The solution is not to demand reciprocal vulnerability from people who have not earned it. The solution is to stop giving your power away in the first place. Machiavelli understood that human beings are fundamentally self-interested. This is not a judgment, simply an observation. People will use the information they have in ways that benefit them. Sometimes consciously, sometimes not. Sometimes with good intentions, sometimes not. But they will use it. If you tell someone your business strategy, they will evaluate it through the lens of their own interests. If you share your doubts, they will see weakness. If you reveal your plans, they will either try to help in ways that serve them or try to dissuade you for reasons that have nothing to do with you. This is not because people are evil. This is because people are human. The hidden mechanism at work here is social conditioning. We are taught from childhood to share, to be open, to communicate. These are valuable skills in contexts where they are appropriate. But somewhere along the way, we stopped distinguishing between contexts. We started treating every interaction as deserving of our full disclosure. Every person is entitled to our inner thoughts. Every platform is appropriate for our deepest revelations. We lost the ability to calibrate our sharing based on trust, context, and strategic value. We became indiscriminate sharers, handing out pieces of ourselves like flyers on a street corner. Society rewards this behavior because it makes people easier to manage. A person who shares everything is a person who can be understood, predicted, controlled. A person who reveals their plans is a person whose plans can be influenced, redirected, or sabotaged. A person who confesses their doubts is a person who can be talked out of their dreams. The system does not want you to be powerful. It wants you to be transparent. Not for your benefit, but for the benefit of those who would shape you, use you, limit you. And every time you reveal yourself without discernment, you participate in your own disempowerment. Nietzsche spoke of master morality versus slave morality. Master morality creates its own values from a place of strength. Slave morality adopts the values imposed by others from a place of weakness. When you feel compelled to explain yourself, to reveal yourself, to justify yourself to people who have not earned your trust, you are operating from slave morality. You are seeking permission, validation, approval from external sources. You have given others the authority to judge what you share, to determine whether your plans are worthy, to decide whether your vulnerabilities are acceptable. This is not freedom. This is submission disguised as authenticity. Now we arrive at the heart of Machiavelli's secret, the mechanism that makes concealment powerful and revelation dangerous. Power operates on asymmetry. The person who knows more has an advantage over the person who reveals more. This is true in negotiations, relationships, competitions, and every interaction where outcomes matter. When you reveal your position, your strategy, your weaknesses, your next move, you create symmetry. You level the playing field. And if the playing field is level, you lose whatever advantage you might have had. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." This is not an instruction to be fake. This is an observation about perception and reality. What people see, what you choose to show them, shapes their understanding of you far more than any underlying truth. If you appear confident, controlled, certain, people will treat you as such, regardless of what doubts you harbor internally. If you reveal those doubts, if you share your uncertainties, if you confess your fears, people will adjust their perception accordingly. Not to align with some deeper truth, but to align with the information you provided. This is why successful leaders, negotiators, strategists throughout history have been masters of concealment. They revealed what served their interests and concealed what would weaken their position. Julius Caesar presented an image of invincibility even when his position was precarious. The Medici family built an empire by knowing everything about everyone while revealing nothing about themselves. Modern CEOs carefully manage what information becomes public and what remains internal. This is not dishonesty. This is strategy. Consider how this plays out in practical terms. You are negotiating a salary. If you reveal your current compensation, you give the employer information they can use to lowball you. If you reveal your desperation for the job, you lose leverage. If you share your other options transparently, you give them information to counter or match strategically. But if you reveal nothing, if you let them wonder, if you maintain an air of having options and confidence, you increase your negotiating power. The information asymmetry works in your favor. Not because you lied, but because you chose not to reveal. The same principle applies to relationships. Early in connection, mystery creates attraction. The person who reveals everything immediately becomes less interesting than the person who unfolds slowly, strategically, selectively. This is not manipulation. This is understanding that value is created through scarcity. When you make yourself completely knowable from the first conversation, there is nothing left to discover. No reason to invest further. No motivation to earn deeper access. You have given away for free what should have been earned through demonstrated trustworthiness over time. In creative and professional pursuits, this principle is equally important. How many times have you shared an idea only to watch someone else execute it? How many times have you discussed a project you were planning only to find the enthusiasm drained by others' skepticism? How many times have you revealed your strategy only to encounter unexpected competition? This is not paranoia. This is pattern recognition. Ideas are vulnerable. Plans are fragile. Strategies require protection. When you share them prematurely, you expose them to forces you cannot control. Machiavelli observed that successful rulers appeared generous but were actually quite selective about their generosity. They appeared open but were actually quite guarded. They appeared to listen to everyone but actually heeded only a few trusted advisors. The appearance and the reality were different, and this difference was intentional. The appearance served public relations. The reality served power. This is the sophistication that most people never develop. They think being the same in public and private is integrity. But integrity does not require transparency. Integrity requires consistency between your values and your actions. It does not require broadcasting your every thought, plan, or strategy. Let us address the ethical question that arises. Is this not dishonest? Is this not manipulative? The answer, again, depends on intention. There is a difference between protective concealment and malicious deception. Protective concealment means you guard information that could be used to harm you or undermine your legitimate goals. Malicious deception means you actively mislead people to exploit them. One is self-defense. The other is aggression. One protects your sovereignty. The other violates theirs. You do not owe everyone access to your inner world. You do not owe casual acquaintances explanations of your choices. You do not owe strangers on the internet details of your life. You do not owe coworkers information about your job search. You do not owe friends who have not proven trustworthy your vulnerable truths. This is not dishonesty. This is discernment. This is understanding that different relationships warrant different levels of disclosure. That intimacy is earned, not owed. That your inner life is sacred and does not need to be shared to be valid. Throughout history, the most influential people understood this instinctively. Leonardo da Vinci filled notebooks with his ideas but shared his finished work strategically. Benjamin Franklin cultivated a public persona that served his political goals while his private thoughts remained largely unknown. Eleanor Roosevelt maintained a public image of accessibility while protecting her private emotional world fiercely. These were not dishonest people. They were strategic people. They understood that power requires discretion, that influence requires mystery, that respect requires boundaries. The moral reversal comes when we realize that excessive revelation is not virtuous. It is often self-destructive. It is not brave to share everything with everyone. It is often reckless. It is not authentic to broadcast your inner world to strangers. It is often exhibitionism disguised as honesty. Real authenticity means being true to yourself, not performing truth for others. Real courage means acting according to your values even when others do not understand, not explaining those values until everyone approves. Real connection means selective vulnerability with people who have earned trust, not performative vulnerability with anyone who will watch. Machiavelli's secret is not that you should become a liar. It is that you should become selective, intentional, strategic, that you should understand information as a form of power and treat it accordingly. That you should recognize revelation as risk and concealment as protection. that you should value mystery as currency and guard your inner world as territory. This does not make you cold. It makes you sovereign. This does not make you dishonest. It makes you wise. This does not make you closed. It makes you selective about who earns access to your depths. So where does this leave you now, armed with this uncomfortable knowledge? You are standing in the middle of a life where you have perhaps revealed too much, too often, to too many people. You have shared your dreams with people who discouraged them. You have confessed your doubts to people who used them against you. You have explained your strategies to people who benefited from knowing them. You have performed your vulnerabilities for audiences who consumed them without reciprocating. And now you know better. Now you understand that the more you reveal, the less power you have. Now what? The transformation begins with integration. Carl Jung taught that becoming whole means accepting all parts of yourself, including the parts you have been taught to reject. For many of us, this includes the part that wants privacy, that desires mystery, that values concealment. We have been so thoroughly trained to equate sharing with caring, revelation with authenticity, transparency with virtue, that we feel guilty for wanting to protect our inner world. We feel selfish for guarding our plans. We feel dishonest for not explaining ourselves to everyone who asks. But this guilt is misplaced. It is the result of social conditioning, not moral truth. There is nothing virtuous about making yourself vulnerable to people who have not earned your trust. There is nothing selfish about protecting your energy, your ideas, your strategies from those who would drain, steal, or sabotage them. There is nothing dishonest about choosing what to share and what to protect. This is not shadow work in the sense of integrating darkness. This is shadow work in the sense of reclaiming parts of yourself you were taught to abandon. Every time you reveal something important to someone who does not value it, a part of your power dims. Not dramatically, not obviously, but gradually, like a light on a dimmer switch being slowly turned down. You become more known and less respected, more transparent and less magnetic, more authentic in theory and less influential in practice. Because power and revelation are inversely related. The more people know about your plans, your weaknesses, your next moves, the less able you are to execute those plans, protect those weaknesses, make those moves effectively. Nietzsche spoke of self-overcoming, the continual process of becoming who you are meant to be by rejecting who you were trained to be. This applies directly to the habit of over-revelation. You were trained to share everything. You were taught that openness equals goodness. You were conditioned to believe that privacy equals shame. But these teachings do not serve you. They serve a system that benefits from your transparency. Self-overcoming in this context means unlearning these patterns. It means reclaiming your right to concealment. It means understanding that you can be honest without being transparent, authentic without being performative, connected without being exposed. The transformation from compulsive revealer to strategic concealer is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming conscious. It is about pausing before you speak and asking, does this person need to know this? Will sharing this serve my interests or theirs? Am I revealing this because it is appropriate and earned, or because I feel compelled to fill silence, to prove myself, to seek validation? Most of the time, you will find that the revelation serves neither you nor the relationship. Most of the time, silence or a simple deflection is wiser. Most of the time, less is more. Think about the person you are becoming. This person does not feel compelled to explain their every decision to casual observers. This person does not share their plans prematurely, protecting them until the right moment. This person does not perform vulnerability for strangers, reserving genuine openness for those who have demonstrated they will honor it. This person is not harder or colder than who you were. This person is simply wiser, more discerning, more protective of their own power. Let us return to the beginning, to that moment when you realize you have said too much. You feel it in your body, that sinking sensation, that instant regret. But now you understand what happened. You gave away power. You revealed information that could have remained protected. You made yourself more predictable, more vulnerable, more exposed than you needed to be. And the good news is that this understanding changes everything. Because awareness is the first step toward different behavior. Once you see the pattern, once you understand the cost, you cannot unsee it. You cannot go back to careless revelation. You begin to guard yourself naturally, instinctively, protectively. Next time you feel the urge to share something important, pause. Feel the compulsion. Notice where it comes from. Is it genuine connection with someone who has earned your trust? Or is it the old pattern seeking validation, approval, reassurance? If it is the former, share selectively and trust your judgment. If it is the latter, choose silence. Choose protection. Choose power. Let them wonder. Let them work to understand you. Let your mystery be part of your appeal and your protection. The world will continue to celebrate radical transparency. It will continue to reward performative vulnerability. It will continue to pressure you to share, to reveal, to confess. But you now know what Machiavelli knew. That revelation is subtraction. That exposure is risk. That mystery is currency. That the person who reveals nothing has power over the person who reveals everything. This is not manipulation. This is mathematics. This is understanding how information flows and how power accumulates. Machiavelli's secret was never that you should lie. It was that you should be strategic. That you should recognize that not all truths need to be spoken. Not all thoughts need to be shared. Not all feelings need to be performed. That you should value your inner world enough to protect it from casual consumption. That you should treat your plans, your strategies, your vulnerabilities as the precious resources they are, not giving them away freely but investing them carefully in relationships and contexts that have proven worthy. The more you reveal, the less power you have. This is not a moral judgment. This is a mechanical reality. Information disperses. Mystery concentrates. Transparency dilutes. Concealment amplifies. You can be known and powerless, or unknowable and influential. You can share everything and matter little, or reveal selectively and command much. The choice, as always, has been yours. But now you know what the choice costs. Now you understand what hangs in the balance. Now you can choose consciously instead of compulsively. If these ideas resonate with you, if you recognize yourself in these patterns, if you are ready to reclaim the power you have been giving away through careless revelation, stay with us. Subscribe to this channel, because this is not about becoming secretive or dishonest. This is about becoming strategic, conscious, and protective of your own sovereignty. This is about understanding that authenticity does not require transparency, that connection does not require confession, and that power begins the moment you understand what not to say. The transformation starts with a single withheld truth. Guard it, protect it, honor it, and watch what changes in your life when you finally understand that silence is not emptiness. It is fullness protected.